Hello, gorgeous women of the Break the Cycle Facebook group. I'm so excited to be on day 5 today for the Relationships and Lessons series. Today, we're going to be talking about Mr. Unavailable. This was another very pivotal experience in my dating history. And this is like where things start to get so much better for me. Although this relationship was painful, it was so healing for me in ways that I didn't know I needed. So if you're here with me, just let me know that you're here. You know the drill. Drop a comment, drop a like, drop a heart. If you're watching the replay, then hashtag replay. Today's a good day. I am just feeling so amazing today. I hope that all of you are feeling well. I love Fridays. And it's like so chilly outside and like rainy, and I just feel like I don't have to do anything today, and that's a good feeling. So we're gonna get started. And like I said, this one is Mr. Unavailable. So we talked yesterday about the catfish, and after I had that experience, I became like a man eater. Like I was so fucking done with like all of the shit that I had gone through. And I was like, I am never going to let anyone hurt me again. So my heart closed off. I was so just like in a mode of just getting what I wanted from men. And I was quite toxic. And so in between each of these really toxic relationships that I've mentioned, I had been with really passive men, the nice guy, right? So in between all of these toxic relationships, I was dating, the nice guy afterwards. And so this experience with Mr. Unavailable, I met him, I think, I'm trying to think how long after my daughter's father passed away. It was less than a year, I think. And that was a catalyst for a lot of shit too. My daughter's father commits suicide in 2017, as I mentioned. And so I was just on like a really bad path yet again, right? Like I had quit my cosmetology job when my daughter's father passed away because my daughter wasn't dealing well with it. I wasn't dealing well with it. It was just rough. So I went back to bartending, and again, like I was just dating the nice guys at this point that were wonderful, and they really cared about me, and I treated them very poorly. And so like I've even had to like go back and like write forgiveness letter or apology letters to them. And I have apologized to some of those guys. Actually, like me talking to them, apologizing to them, and others, like I was like, it's just not good. I'll just write this and then burn it. Right. So time goes on, and I meet Mr. Unavailable. We're at a club, and I run into him, and I have a thing for older men. Like I am just so turned on by older men. And so he's about 20 years older than me, I think. I meet him, and we're talking, and he's very charming, very, very attractive, gorgeous. And we're talking, and I'm just like getting kind of bored of him. And he keeps telling me that he wants to give me his card. And so finally I'm like, okay, like give me your card. I'm not going to reach out to this guy. So I don't talk to him the rest of the night. And the next day I pull his card out of my purse and like, I don't know what possessed me to pull out his card, but I pull out his business card and I text him and I'm like, guess who? And he actually lives in Michigan. So he lived hours away, but he was in town for business. And so we're talking a little bit and he tells me that he wants to offer me a job at his company. That's like, you know, kind of the way that these CEO successful men try to like get in with you, right? And so we're talking and I'm like, you know, I'm not really interested in that, but maybe. And then he tells me that he's really intrigued by me and he wants to fly me out to Florida to hang for a weekend. So I'm like, duh. Like, why wouldn't I do that? Right? Like thinking back now, like I was always kind of like an adrenaline junkie, right? And I loved chaos. And so thinking now, I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty dangerous to meet somebody once and then go on vacation with them, you know, a week later. But he flies me to Florida and we have the best time. He is so amazing. And I honestly, I do think he's a wonderful person. I have nothing against this person. He helped me heal so much because that first time that we hung out in Florida, he was the first person to tell me, like, I was really into spray tanning, extensions, all the things, right? Because I was so insecure from all the relationships that I had previously had. And so he was the first guy to ever tell me how beautiful I was naturally. He was like, you don't need hair extensions. Like, I love how pale you are. Like, I love your skin. Like, he would just tell me all of these amazing things about me. And he never once said a mean, bad word to me, not ever. And we were seeing each other on and off for 3 years. He boosted my confidence so much. He told me, you know, how smart I was, all the things. And like, he did love bomb me. No, you know what I mean? Like he did for sure. But he never tried to change me. Well, that's not true. I'll get into this, but he never said things to me that were hurtful, but he, as I said, like was very, very wealthy, was into all of the designer stuff, you know, had all the expensive cars, the mansion, all the things. And so there's me. And, you know, I'm this young single mom, not making a whole lot of money, and I don't have designer stuff and whatever. And so he would buy me designer stuff because I think he was kind of like, maybe just feeling like, you know, better than me, right? And so he would buy me those things. And at the time, it didn't feel like that, but kind of as time went on, I was like, I feel like, you know, he's kind of ashamed of, you know, I'm not always in Lululemon or, you know, any of the designer brands. And so, I kind of felt that way. And he tells me, you know, on our Florida trip, that he's not looking for a relationship, that he is emotionally unavailable. He tells me right up front, I am emotionally unavailable, saying those words exactly. I'm emotionally unavailable. I'm not looking for a relationship. In my little codependent trauma brain, I'm like, perfect. I can fix you. Like, I am going to show you that I can change you and it's going to be great. And, you know, obviously you don't think those things consciously a lot of the time, but that was my mindset. I was like, he'll change his mind. I'll get him to change his mind, because that's the chase, right? We chase the emotionally unavailable, because if we can get them to love and accept us, then it'll make up for all the pain and the lack of acceptance, the rejection that we experienced when we were younger or with other people. And so I know this about him up front. And like I said, like we had the best time together. He is such a fun person, and we just really vibed. It was all about the fun because I didn't really have any emotional depth at that point. Like I had very little emotional depth. And so, you know, I wouldn't talk about my feelings. I didn't have any standards. I didn't have any boundaries. I did have standards that were elevated from my previous relationships, but I still didn't even understand that at the time. You know what I mean? So, I spent a lot of my time with him. I would go to his house, or I would drive to him a lot of the time. He would drive to me. We'd go on vacations together, and I would get really attached to him. And then I would get upset that he didn't want to be with me. And so it was like this constant cycle because he was meeting so many of my needs. He was like accommodating. He would, you know, send me and my daughter gifts in the mail all the time. He met my daughter and had a relationship with her. And we would spend our birthdays together. We would go on vacations together. He would, you know, do these really romantic things on vacation, like just spoil me with like affection. And he would put on these like really elaborate experiences. Like some of the best experiences of my life were with this person. I remember he took me to Cirque du Soleil in Mexico, and we got like a front row seat. We had dinner. Like it was such an extraordinary experience. And like we had like a private dinner on the beach, like something that you would do with like your fiance, right? And so of course, how could I not get attached to this person who's making me laugh, who is complimenting me, who is being so like, he's there, you know what I mean? And just like we're doing relationship things, but we're not in a relationship. And often he would tell me, "You're my closest friend." And I'm like, "Your friend? Like we're doing all these things together and I am your friend? Like, what the fuck?" And I was spending so much time with him, like at least a couple weekends out of the month. And so whether it was like I was going there, he was coming here, or, you know, we were going on vacation together. And when we would get on the phone, we didn't really like, we wouldn't talk consistently when we weren't seeing each other, but like if we were on the phone, we would be on the phone for like 4 hours and all of the things. And so I was giving him girlfriend privileges without him making me his girlfriend. And so why would he commit to me? He had no reason to commit to me because I was just doing whatever. And I was also chasing him. Like I always wanted his attention. I always wanted to hang out with him. I was always willing to drive to him. I just made things really, really easy. And so, you know, it got to the point where like I would get really attached, and then I would judge him for his emotional unavailability, and I would get upset with him and like expect him to change his mind. And he would continuously tell me, "I don't want a relationship. I am emotionally unavailable." Like he told me like he didn't believe in relationships. Like he had a really nasty divorce and all this stuff. And I had met him, you know, a year after that. And so he was just really scorned by it. And, you know, he tells me he doesn't believe in relationships. He thinks that, you know, he just has a really bad mindset on relationships. And then there's me who desperately wants to have some kind of relationship. And so he starts getting in my head about like relationships suck, marriage sucks, like relationships are painful, there's no point to them, like all of these things. And so I really like mute my feelings and I start adopting his beliefs, you know, like I've mentioned before, like that chameleon thing that we do, that us codependents do. It's like we morph into whoever somebody wants us to be. So I was like the cool girl, right? Like I wasn't difficult. I made things really easy. I didn't speak up when I was upset. Like I just would swallow my feelings and I wouldn't, I wasn't getting my needs met. I was getting some of them met. And the thing was, like, this was somebody who I really liked that was meeting my needs. And also, it was like a total ego boost for me that somebody this attractive, somebody this successful, all the things was picking me to hang out with. So it was like a major ego boost. And, I was getting my sexual needs met. I was getting, my play. Like I said this before, like I'm a Leo. I love to play. I love to have fun. Like I love to laugh. And so I'm very attracted to people that bring that out in me and in our connection. And that was always our thing. Like we were constantly just laughing and it was amazing. But it would be these cycles where we'd have a really amazing time. And then I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. And then I would block him. And then I would get lonely and I'd miss him. And then I'd unblock him and then we'd hang out again. And he was always available was the thing. Like he was always available for me, in the sense of like, I knew he was never dating anybody. So anytime that I wanted to hang out, it was available for the most part. And so about this guy, he told me, it was like, he like mentioned something sometime. He was like, something about being a narcissist. And I was like, and I didn't really see it from him, because, we never had any problems. We never fought. We never had a single fight. But he like, acknowledged that he was a narcissist. And I was like, well, I've never seen that, but I do see that he's emotionally unavailable. And so, there again, I was the codependent, narcissistic person. I wouldn't say he was like a malignant narcissist, like the type of toxic ones that I had been with in the past. But I did like he was dishonest. He lied a lot, and I would always catch him in lies, but I'd never say anything. Again, like I would just let it go and let him lie to me. And I'm like, well, like, it's fine. I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to say anything. And I'm just going to like push it under the rug. So again, like that was a pattern in my relationship. So although this connection was far better than any connection that I'd ever had, he didn't want commitment with me. He lied, he love bombed, he would manipulate. Like if he knew that I was going out on a date with somebody else, then he would be like, I need to fly you here. Like, he would get jealous and he would like feel insecure. And then he would try to manipulate me to like choose him. And so, it was like walking away from this relationship was so hard, like officially walking away because, he didn't take me seriously when I would say like, I can't do this anymore, blah, 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 blah. Like he'd be like, okay, like see you in a week. And it was like when I really started to, it was when I became a health coach that I walked away from this relationship because I wanted to be in integrity with the things that I was teaching. And I just, I had overcome bulimia at this point, and I was getting my life together. Like I started my stuff and, I was doing well again. And my need for him started to dissipate. Like the more I became comfortable with myself and became more emotionally available myself, the less attractive he seemed. And so what I noticed was like, we would only go out and party together and have fun together, but there was no real emotional depth. And so as I was healing so much throughout this journey, Um, my daughter's father passing away was like when I really got into all of the healing things. And so as time had gone on and I had been on this healing journey and I really started to make some drastic changes in my life, my need for him was less. And so we started hanging out less. I started craving him less. And then ultimately I, made a decision that after 3 years of this whole cycle, that I needed to end this, because I knew that if I wanted to have a relationship, that I couldn't be with this person anymore. He was taking my time, he was taking my energy. And, I was learning that when we spend time with somebody who's not a fit for us, we are energetically closing ourselves off to what's meant for us. Right. And so, ultimately we went on like one last vacation and it was amazing. However, our connection was just different this time. And it didn't feel as fulfilling this time. And so I knew that it was time. And I told him that it was time, that our connection was over. And we stopped talking. He reached out to me quite a bit and, would send me things in the mail to try to get me to talk to him. But ultimately, me walking away gave me so much confidence. Like I just knew in my heart that I wasn't going back this time, and I didn't. And so, what this relationship taught me, I'm so grateful for this person. Even though like that cycle of just not being chosen was really painful. There was no consistency. There was no commitment. There was dishonesty, all those things. But ultimately what this relationship taught me was, I really didn't have like true romantic feelings for him, because neither of us could open up for true emotional intimacy. I just wanted his love and commitment, because when it didn't happen, it triggered my rejection and my abandonment wounds. I also learned that I was emotionally unavailable, because when we attract an emotionally unavailable person, it mirrors the parts of us that are emotionally unavailable. And picking somebody who's emotionally unavailable is actually safer for us. As much as we say we don't want it consciously, subconsciously, we are pushing healthy people away and picking the emotionally unavailable ones, because then we're always kept at arm's length, and you can't truly get hurt, which isn't actually true, but that's what we think, right? And this whole experience was my responsibility, because he told me up front that he was not looking for a relationship and that he was emotionally unavailable. So I chose this. There's nobody else to blame but me. I continuously chose this over and over and over again. And it was my responsibility to either be okay with it or decide it didn't work for me and leave. And a lot of the times we don't believe people when they say how they feel. We don't believe the guy that says he doesn't want a relationship. We don't believe the guy. And like, the thing is, they'll do different things. They'll do all the relationship things, but they'll still say that they don't want a relationship. We have to believe them. Just because they're doing those things, they're looking to meet their own needs. So them doing relationship stuff with you, it's them meeting their own needs in that way. They're looking for companionship without the commitment. So we have to believe them when they say they don't want a relationship with us. Once I let go of my control and resentment and judgment towards him for not being the person that I wanted him to be, I had like a major energetic shift. Like I was constantly judging him for his emotional unavailability. I would always just like get so mad at him. And I honestly was like mean about it. Like I would, in order to protect myself, like I would say like snarky comments, or I would be passive aggressive. And once I just released judgment towards him, I was like, I chose this. Why would I be judging him for something for who he is? That's who he is. I either accept it or I don't. It's not his, responsibility to me. So once I was able to release my resentment towards him and his judgment, I set both of us free. And that was a very epic experience for me. And then, it's not our job to change anybody else's mind. It's not our job to try to get them to choose us. It's not our job to chase them. It's not our job to try to win them over. It's our job to respect ourselves and say, does this work for me? Or does this not work for me? Period. If you don't like the way that somebody's treating you, sure, you can ask them to change, but if they're not changing, instead of constantly nagging them to change or trying to get them to change or changing your behavior so that they'll change, just go, leave. You don't need to be involved in that. There's so many men out there who will happily meet your needs and who will treat you the way that you want to be treated. But you've got to stop trying to convince people of your worth. You've got to stop trying to convince somebody that they should love you or that they should commit to you. It's not our job to do that. It's our job to either say, this works for me or this doesn't work for me. And if it works and, if you don't like it and you stick around, then you have to accept it, period. If you don't like it and you choose to stick around, you've got to accept it or you leave. It is that simple. And walking away from this relationship was like so powerful. And I'm so glad that it happened. I'm so glad that it happened because it was the catalyst for a lot of amazing things and a lot of healing, even though it was painful. And even though, it hurt me a lot, I wouldn't be where I am without this experience. Like he helped me heal from those past relationships that I had. And, after those relationships that I had previously, I was doing, the healing work because I was in so much pain. And so, you start to see how things shift. When I started feeling better about myself and doing that healing work, I attracted somebody who mirrored that to me and amplified it. So even though this relationship was painful and it wasn't exactly what I wanted and he was emotionally unavailable, there was a lesson to be learned. There was a healing experience to be had. So that's what I get to take away from it. I'm really happy I had that experience. Like I said, there was so much that happened in those 3 years with that person that were amazing, and they're memories that I'll have forever. And I can look back at that and like just smile and be happy because I had them, instead of like with resentment or with anger or with making him not committing to me mean something about me, because it didn't. He just was not there. And as I became more emotionally available, we were no longer an energetic match, which is the thing too. It's like when people come to me and they are in a relationship, they're like, I don't know if I should leave this relationship. I'm like, listen, when we do this work, the relationship will either rise with you, or you'll no longer be an energetic match and it'll fall away. And it's true. I see it all the time with so many of my clients. So that's the thing. It's like, when we do this work, you always attract what you're an energetic match for. You always do. Like, it is the law. There's no way around it. If you're experiencing unfortunate circumstances in your relationships, it's because you're an energetic match for it. I was an energetic match for all of that pain that I experienced in my previous relationships. I was an energetic match for this relationship because I was emotionally unavailable and I was insecure, and he was secretly insecure, which is why he had to prove everything with all his money. We're an energetic match for every experience that we have. So if you don't like your experiences, you have got to look within you and see what's going on, because nothing's going to change. If you continue to treat yourself like garbage, if you continue to, not prioritize yourself, not set boundaries, not spend time alone, or you've completely closed off your heart, so you're not attracting anybody, or you're attracting really emotionally unavailable people. It starts with you. And that's really difficult because we want to blame the other person, but you have patterns that you have subconsciously committed to. And so when you heal what's within you and you start healing that relationship to yourself, you're going to see so many things change in your life. Like, not even just your relationships, but like everything. Everything is an extension of the relationship that you have with yourself. So we've really got to take a long, hard look at that, because I did not understand for the longest time why I had the relationships that I had. And I had no idea where it stemmed from, where it came from, and all the things. And then I looked at every relationship that I had and how they were all eerily familiar and very, very similar. So it's all within you, and that can be quite triggering. But the beautiful thing is that you have the power to change this. You have the power to change this. You really do. So that's the golden ticket. It's like, if I have been subconsciously choosing these patterns and I've been participating in them, a pattern is just a behavior that we keep repeating. So what if we had different behaviors? What if we had different thoughts and feelings? It's all going to send back to you and what you're available for. So I hope that this was helpful. This relationship was the turning point for my relationships and for the way that I was treated in relationships. So I'm glad that I get to share this with you. And I'm sure, I talk to so many women that have the same experience with the emotional unavailable guy, the situationship where they're not being committed to, they're just stuck in this cycle, and you can absolutely break out of it. So I love you all so much, and I will see you on Monday for the next one. All right. Bye, everyone.